Season 1 left us with some unanswered questions like why Arnold married Rishi? Did he knew her before? Why does he hate his eyes? Did he really kill his own mother? What was this cold stare for? Will they actually get married? Have a baby boy with Arnold's hair and Rishi's eyes? Or will he start a war and kill her again for the seventh time? I don't know what those random questions were in the intro, but some of the little questions that I have thought about after finishing the anime were answered in the light novel. The volume starts with Rishi walking beside Arnold to the party. She tries her luck again, hoping that he would answer her one simple question. Why does he propose to her? And like always, he dodged away, giving her the same I have fallen for you reason. She knows it's a lie, so sulkingly she mentioned the evidence she'd been holding on for this conversation. You also said that you brought me here to use me. Well, the reason doesn't really matter, does it? He puts off the conversation again. It might not matter to him, but for Rishi, this was the big turning point in her life. She didn't need to know everything, but having a little more information would definitely help. Her dissatisfaction showed plain on her face, and Arnold laughed, finding it amusing. At this rate, he would never tell her the reason he proposed to her, no matter what she did. But she needed to get going with her plan and learn as much as she could about him. And the first person who claimed to know Arnold is his brother, Prince Theodore. So she goes to him and straight up asks about Arnold and his father's relationship. But unfortunately, he doesn't really know much either, since they both always have a conversation alone. However, he told her about his mother, even though they both had different mothers and none of them were alive. He said that their father, the Galcan's emperor, commanded Arnold's mother, who was the hostage from another royal family, to marry him. His mother hated both her husband and her son, so Arnold was abused by her throughout his childhood. He says, it went on like this for years, until he finally stabbed her with a sword, and quietly added, right through the heart. She thinks back to how he had killed her like that too, but I'm telling you, there's something more behind this. She also has some doubts, so she asks, do you know for sure that's what happened? It was kept hidden from the public, but everybody who's anybody in this country knows about it. Her mind took in the information, and she thought about what she had heard about his father's order to Arnold to marry someone with royal blood, hoping it would connect some dots because she also has some distant royal relatives. Or maybe if she could learn about his mother, she would better understand why Prince Arnold had proposed to her. But since she doesn't really know if figuring it out will help avoid the war, she turned her focus back to her plan, which was to visit the church Grand Basilica in Domana Kingdom that Arnold had burned down in her previous life. Now seizing her place on the couch opposite him, she calls out to him, Prince Arnold? Yes, what's with the solemn look? He asked, noticing. Well, I'm here on a rather selfish request. Arnold urged her to continue with his eyes. Rishi said, a bit flatly, I'd like to officially annul my engagement. He said absolutely nothing and just watched her. Oh, of course I mean my... She began again, but Arnold stood and sat beside her, his eyes fixed on her. If that is your wish, he left his sentence hanging and reached his hand out, combing through her hair. Ever since Rishi allowed him physical contact, he'd developed a habit of stroking her hairs. She thinks he probably felt like he's petting an animal, while she on the other hand was always caught unaware. The surprise was bad for her heart, and mine too as a matter of fact. And to make it worse, right now his face was so close to hers that she felt cornered. Your Highness, she stuttered, and the most beautiful man in her world whispered, I'll have to interfere with whatever method I can, completing his sentence. He really wants Rishi to be his wife, doesn't he? Too bad we don't know if it's his plan or his undying love for her. Huh? Rishi was speechless for a moment. She wondered why he'd say something like that, and then realized that there had been a misunderstanding. She was talking about annulling her childhood engagement with Prince Dietrich of Hermitry. They performed as a part of an old political tradition, and since it remained formally registered with the church, it prevented Rishi from fully committing to her new engagement with Arnold. She explained herself, and he listened, releasing a sigh. So they went to the church, and at that time it was said that the world once had a goddess. A religion called Crusade revered this goddess and created the calendar along with various religious teaching. She was always curious about his relationship with the Crusade, hence her plan to take him with her. Though she didn't think it would be as easy as it was, I'm waiting for her to realize that she can make him do almost anything just by requesting almost. He of course doesn't believe in either the Crusade or their goddess. On their way, Rishi met with the 11 or 10-year-old Lady Melia, who she served as a maid in her fourth life. She was a moody child, and back then her father, Duke Junal, had gotten an illness that made him half paralyzed. For this life, they seemed to be doing okay, except that Lady Melia, who was still a handful child, was preparing to play the part of the priestess/maiden for the church's upcoming festival. She was throwing a fit, causing a scene that resulted in carriage to stop. She also seemed to think that whenever she hates something, it gets cursed. Rishi had calmed her down after showing her a magic trick that she prepared only for her. She went back. Arnold doesn't seem to like her though, as he was looking at their exchange somewhat dispassionately. When she asked about it, he just said he doesn't like children. As soon as they reach the Grand Basilica, a boy comes to them out of breath asking them for help. Turns out that Lady Melia's carriage had lost a wheel and fallen off the alley. She and her father was fine. Rishi recognized the boy as Leo, and in her sixth life as a soldier, she had seen him doing chores while his body was healing from injuries. He mostly kept to himself, and his eyes would always be covered with an eye patch. Back then, when she asked about him, they said that he was punished for making a mistake at his job. Fast forward to her going to the procedure to get her engagement annulled that required her listening to Salim for hours and Arnold taking care of whatever business he had with the church. He wasn't allowed to be with her and he doesn't want anyone from the church to be near her outside the ceremony. But a bishop named Snyder approached Rishi while she was looking at the mural with the crusade language written on it. He talked to her for a while, warning her not to marry Arnold until Arnold arrives and shoo him away, calling Rishi his wife instead of fiancé. Crusade was considered as the language of goddess, and not many people understood it. But Arnold, who knows everything and is great at everything too, reads it like his own language and explained it to Rishi that the girl with hair color of the flower was descended from the goddess and led the people as the royal priestess. In easy word, a girl with flower color hair is qualified as the priestess. Rishi was shocked at first at how he knew the language, but brushed it away thinking that the emperor must have been a devoted follower, and he must have made Arnold learn about it. But the truth was, Arnold had the priestess blood in him, because the time his father had conquered the Holy Kingdom, Arnold's mother was taken as hostage, and they formed a treaty to never have a priestess born on that land for 20 years or so, in return of not being destroyed by the Galcan Emperor. Rishi didn't know that by now and figured it out when Arnold told her that his mother had violet hairs like the flower, exactly what had written in the mural. After that stupid cruel old man took Arnold's mother, her sister was left behind, who was then rumored to be very sick and unable to bear any children. But those rumors were obviously not true, because Lady Melia, who was supposed to be playing the part of priestess, was actually the priestess, her daughter, given to Duke Janal to be kept safe and sound, making Arnold and Melia cousins. But the thing is that within the church, there were one side that wanted to kill Melia to keep the treaty going, and the other wanted to protect her. Arnold and Risha were clearly on the protecting side, despite his dislike for the young lady. Soon they find out that the curse she'd been talking about was someone trying to assassinate her, going as far as putting poisonous trap in the forbidden forest and on her festival dress. I try to simplify it a lot, but if you read the novel, you'll go through so many more emotions before finally solving the mystery. Anyways, let's get back to Melia and Leo for a second. So Leo was an orphan and had taken away from the orphanage his home by Duke Jonal. At first, it appears that he'd been assigned to assassinate Melia, but later it reveals that he was there to protect her on Bishop's command. Soon after Melia get the news of people getting hurt because of her, again, she asks Leo about the orphanage and leave. The scary part was that the orphanage was past that off-limit forest filled with poisonous trap. She always knew that Duke Jonal was not her real father, so she wanted to go to the orphanage, to the place she thinks that she belongs to. Rishi got to know about it, and since she adores the little lady, she went after her, telling Leo to inform Arnold about them. She spots Melia, and while trying to comfort her and be there for her, though she keeps on being a bratty little child, because she is a child, she heard a metal click as Melia pushed her away from her, and in an instant, she recognized the sound of an arrow coming toward them. It was poisoned, of course, and Rishi had been glazed by it while trying to protect her. In her dizzy state, her mind goes here and there, stopping at Arnold, her future husband. She was losing consciousness, but before she faints, her future husband finds her, putting her against the tree and sucked out all the poison that had entered her bloodstream, while she kept on protesting that he shouldn't. He says, "This is one time I refuse to grant your request," and continued, until numbness took over her as the poison faded from her skin, accompanied by a strange sensation somewhere between heat and pain. But the feeling gave her no relief. Her heart was in chaos. Rishi wanted to cry but felt hopelessly dizzy. She was weakening, losing her grip. She thought the feeling was somewhat familiar to her. She slowly shut her eyes as the world swayed around her. It's like when she died. That familiar feeling stole away her consciousness, and she sank into the warm sea. For a second there, I had a tiny heart attack thinking that maybe she had died or something, forgetting that she's the main character. Later, she woke up in bed, her head on Arnold's arm, and thought about their interaction before she had fallen asleep. I have to admit, this part was the sweetest of the whole volume, but I don't think I'd be able to stop yapping about it in a minute, so I will leave it for later. To summarize it, he told her about his stupid father who had killed every other children who hadn't had the same hair color or eye color as him, and how that ruthless man had murdered Arnold's sister in front of his and his mother's eyes. Since he would draw a sword across a newborn child in front of their mother, he's a psycho and I hate that man with passion. And I know that Rishi's changing everything Arnold does in his past life, like all the bloodshed and everything, but I do not want her to stop him from killing his father. And I'm sure you all agree with me on this. The amount of torture Arnold has to go through because of him is just heartbreaking. And after Rishi heard it, she started to cry a lot, making Arnold panic. She asked him if she can stroke his hairs, thinking that she can go back and comfort the young Arnold, so it will be nice to console the older version of him. He accepted her request because seeing her cry like that was hurting him, and they both fall asleep. As for the people who wanted to kill Melia and end up hurting Rishi, Arnold was not going to let them go. The person leading that faction was the Archbishop, and he tried again to kidnap Melia, but Arnold and Rishi spotted him. And while Arnold could have killed him right there and then, Rishi interrupted, taking his mind off of the situation by biting him on the neck. He let the Archbishop go, threatening him that if he didn't tell the church the whole truth, he would wish that he had died today, and saying that he owes his life to his wife, Rishi. He just keeps on proving that he's one of the best written character ever. I don't see a single flaw in him. He is unkind sometimes, but as Rishi said, it's not without a reason. Like when he says to Bishop that Rishi is just a trophy wife to him. He is protecting her, knowing that if they had kids, Rishi would most likely be the priestess. And that's the same reason why he had glared at Kyle with those icy eyes when he had mentioned that Rishi was like the goddess back in season 1. And Rishi too is an outstanding character, full of energy, and she has to be the definition of understanding a person rather than just being with them. Because when she does accidentally hears him call her a trophy wife, she plays along, believing and trusting him, instead of slapping him across his face like he had thought she would do. Alright, so a lot of scenes that could have ended badly reached their destination peacefully because of Rishi. And after the Archbishop was taken away, Arnold carried Rishi to their room for her to rest up because she was still a bit weak after the poison and her legs had gave out like the last time. She yelped saying, "Not the bridal style again," so he carried her upright instead. The novel ends with Bishop being the new Archbishop and making alliance with Prince Arnold to protect the future children. Though he wasn't clearly on the right side of protecting Melia since he knew about the poisonous traps in the forest and wanted to get proof of Archbishop's plan, saying that if Melia had gotten hurt by them and if Leo had failed to protect her, then he would have punished him and given his life for the goddess. This was his worst case scenario, and considering how Rishi had seen Leo all beaten up and Duke half paralyzed in her previous life, I'm sure his worst case scenario would have happened if it wasn't for her. Still, he was better than those who completely wanted to assassinate young Amelia, and maybe that was one of the reasons why Arnold had agreed to the future alliance, though he had already made up his mind long ago not to tell his father about the priestess. The festival was going to start soon, and Melia comes in to get them. She asks if she could call Rishi her sister, and Rishi gladly agrees. But as she thanked Arnold for saving her life, she realized that he'd be her brother-in-law if he married Rishi. Though he kept staring at her, Rishi gave her full right to consider her and Arnold as her family. After everyone leaves and they were alone in the room, Arnold began teasing her again with their non-existent hair that Bishop was talking about. And by the time he was satisfied with her flustered state, he told her that he would never take advantage of her, even after marriage, making her think back to his reason for marrying her. That's right, Prince Arnold proposed to me with some sort of ulterior motive in mind. He's not looking for me to play the role of a real wife, she thought, and he yawned from tiredness. Feeling bad for him, she asked if he'd like some rest, and he laid down on her lap as she sat on the couch. Ugh, I don't know why I'm so obsessed with these slow burn animes and books. Like I have read 3 volumes just for them to confess their feelings, but nope. As for the novel readers who have already read ahead of the volumes, there is one question that I didn't get from this volume. It's about what Arnold whispered to her as he killed her in her 6th life. Cause she clearly remembers it, but the author puts it off and never explained. I feel like it has something to do with the major plot, but so far I haven't read anything about it. So if you know, please tell me too. And that's all for today. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
No, you'll never be the same. I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change.